What's up, y'all? This is Hussein from iGeometry, and today we're going to continue with our VB.NET programming series. So this is the second episode. It's 8:20 in the morning. You can't see the clock. I don't know why I'm saying it. All right, so so I decided in this series we're going to take an example or a problem maybe, and are we recording? Yes, we are. I'm gonna take a problem and we're gonna solve it. So this is the classic way of basically tackling to learn anything. Learn by example. That's what I like to learn. This is the method I like to learn with, basically. So you have a problem, you try to solve it. In the process, you learn skills. So that's what we're gonna do in this episode. So the problem that I introduced to you is a very serious one, actually. Yes. So yeah, it's it's yeah. We need to write a program to help people order their pizzas. Yes, it's a serious because you don't have enough of those, right? Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, guys. It's just yeah, this is the simplest example I can think of, alright? And yeah, so we're gonna write a pizza program. Ordering mother program. They call it the programs now, I don't know. Not application, executable, whatever you can call it. So and you have to give a name for this company who ordered pizza. And we don't want no pizza places suing us, alright? So pick a name that doesn't like we don't want like Pizza Hut or whatever. It's called Pizza Bit. Oh, that's I just came up with this name. It's genius. Pizza Bit. Woo! Isn't that genius, guys? Pizza Bit. That's our software right there. Let's save it. So, man, in the morning I become so smart for some reason. The evening sounds so dumb. Say stuff now. Look, Pizza Bit. Alright. Okay, so we're gonna write this software to solve this problem, which is a pizza ordering system. You wanna call it, some people call it system. System is a really big word for pizza ordering. So you know what's the difference between system and program? System is a collection of programs essentially, but it's actually more than that. It's a collection of suite of programs that contains other programs, right? It's a complicated web of programs. When I say web, I don't mean the internet. I mean the connection between clients and servers. So that's a system. So yeah, Pizza Bit. Man, I'm in love with this name. I'm obsessed with it now. Thank guys. Ooh, Pizza Bit. Alright, so what we do now is this software will allow you to order pizzas. So customers can make their own pizza. Alright? And what? They can make their own pizzas, they can order pizza, check the price of whatever they made. So all this shit are things that we have to develop. You have to develop eventually. Okay, now we will learn programming while solving this problem. So, and another thing as well, and we'll keep adding, of course, stuff and functionality to this. Feel free to just drop. Of course, I don't want to drop everything on you, but they will be like you can save your own pizza, read pizzas from database, all these things. I don't want to drop on you these big words, but yeah, we're gonna do all this. but not in the third or fourth episode, obviously in the coming ones, once your feet are wet with programming. All right, so another thing I want to discuss, that traditional programming is basically, they call it sequential or functional programming, where you have methods and you call these methods to execute your programs. The new style of programming, there are many styles now, and the one I would like to uh, basically discuss or teach in this episodes are called object-oriented programming, right? So we will not go through the typical university style where teaching you the basics and then teaching you the old style and then jumping to the object. I'm gonna directly teach you guys how to do object-oriented programming. And don't freak out, it's really simple. I'm not gonna throw you big words now. It's just that you need to think for your program. You don't think for a program. You need to think in terms of objects, right? You need to think of terms of objects. That's what's called object oriented, obviously. So everything in your application should be, like, ideally should be an object. Like in our case, there must be something called pizza, right? In your object, right? So pizza we called class, and we're gonna discuss this next. So this episode is called classes. We're gonna discuss classes. All right. So that's what we're gonna do next. All right. So let's do that. So we just to remind that. Hopefully we'll have the time. We're gonna have an hour. It's a morning. Everyone is sleeping. So yeah. All right. So let's discuss this. All right. Object-oriented programming is this notion of style of programming that has been developed recently to think of your software in terms of objects. So if you're developing some sort, if you have to identify it. There's like this boring side of it, and I'm sure for those of you who studied these object-oriented courses, they are boring as fuck, so they make you identify, oh, what objects are these and what are the associated between them. Don't go that complex, just make it fun, right? So it's like this one stupid exam. They were asking us, there's a loaf of bread, and they said, what are the classes for that? What the fuck, man? I mean, it's a loaf. It's a fucking loaf of bread. What kind of object I could extract out of that? This shows like how twisted our teachers were. It's just simple. Make it simple. I've been working for fucking 12 years, and everything was simple. Really. I mean, it's just. I mean, you are at work. You have a problem, and magically everything appears because it's simple. It's realistic. It's related to you. What the fuck I would program a loaf of bread for? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. These exams, they really frustrate me. I mean, yeah, whatever. So yeah, back to topic. Right. So what we want to do here is, let's take our. So we need to think of everything as basically objects, and thus you create this concept of classes, and then you pour your code that we learned basically in the previous episode. We didn't learn much code, but that we will have some sort of a vessel to pour our code in, and instead of just having it floating everywhere, without a purpose. So you have to group in. Objects are really great. That is one reason. So if you think of objects, every method, every function, every piece of functionality or logic just should fall into a particular class or an object instance. If I have pizza, there must be a pizza class, right? or a pizza object. So this pizza object, so get price method, give me the price of that pizza, should be a method inside this pizza class. It should not be a global method that uses weird relations and references multiple stuff. So it should be, everything should fall there. Add for example, add ingredient, add stuff, you know. All this is related to the pizza. Or make an order obviously is not related to pizza, so that's another thing that we have to consider, right? Because there will be an order class. All right, so a lot of people learn classes and object later in their career and professional or educational style, so they would have learned databases already, and that's the biggest confusion in the world, because I faced that. You know, when you teach database to people, like, everybody will think of tables, right? Oh, table that, table this. But when you think of object oriented, so the first thing that people think, the simplest thing is that, hey, I know, just to convert each table to a fucking object. That's not how it works. Really, that was I used to do that. I mean, yeah. Every table is an object, right? So no, that's weird. And even professor didn't have a clue what they were teaching us. It's a new thing. Was back in 2001. It was actually way older, but it reached us by 2001. That's technology of object oriented. Okay, guys. So yeah, so classes. Yeah, so this is the second thing. So methods fall, and they will be, class will be vessels for your code. So they will fall into place nicely. So if they fall into place, you can share them easily. That's the best part of object oriented. So if I have a pizza class or an object, I can give that object to someone else and use it. Just you say, hey, take this class and use it. You know, reusability. That's what it is. You know, so that's the one of the good things. And I'm not gonna bore you with theoretical stuff. You know, that textbooks have. All right, so yeah. So now let's go. What is a class? Huh? What is a class, really? So this you heard this word a lot, you know. So this is what it comes to it, you know. So if somebody asks you what is a class, and so class is basically the key component of object oriented. You know, you need classes for everything. You know, classes forms objects. So what is the difference? That's the questions we're gonna answer. What's the difference between classes and objects? Huh? So classes, think of classes as templates. You know, let me draw a Picasso here right there. See? What the fuck is that? By the way, this was supposed to be a cube. I don't know what the fuck I drew. Dude. I think it's like that. Yeah. Yeah. Look at that. It's a table now. What's that? It's a cube, guys, okay? Just get over it. Just get over it. It's a tube. Cube, it's a cube, alright? This is an empty cube that you can put stuff in. Right? And think of a class as a cube, and you can pour stuff into this liquid and form out of that cube some objects, some instances of that cube, right? So you use this as a mold, and this mold can form you multiple stuff. Another example that is relative to you, right? Cupcakes, right? So cupcakes, you know, to make cupcakes, you should have this kind of template that they sell, right? You know, so they have some sort of a like container, and it have all these weird shapes, right? This is a cupcake. I don't think this is a cupcake, but it just so forms. So these are like empty holes with this shape, right? And you'll make this dough, whatever, and you pour this into these, right? You put them in the oven, you take them out, and you get cupcakes, right? So you can put something else, right? You can. This is like, say, strawberry cupcake. You can put strawberry or blueberry stuff. Blueberry dough. It's not actually a dough. Okay, don't correct me. Okay, whatever is it dough? I don't know. Please correct me. I'm sorry. Is it dough? I don't know what is it. Yeah. So they put some sort of a syrup, whatever, and they pour that, bake it. They turn it into a blueberry cake. See? So the idea of that, the cupcake template that you use to make cupcake is called a class. Wow, that's a small font. Okay, it's called a class, while the actual output is called objects. Huh? Interesting still? So that's a class and that's object. Class never changes. So it stays the same. But the object, you can make different kind of cupcakes from the same. Can't believe I'm talking about cupcakes. All right, you can make different kind of cupcakes out of the same template, cupcake template, or whatever they call this. All right. So these are objects, and these are one class. Can give you lots of objects with a lot of characteristics, lots of attribute. So that's the beauty of that, So class and object, we just described it. It's as simple as it is, A class cannot be used until you have to pour some life, some data. You have to put some data into it and then use it, So you have, in this case, we have 6 objects. And this cupcake can have like raisins and shit, like this particular cupcake. This cupcake can have what? I don't know, lemon. So what I'm doing here is that each object that get out of this class can be actually different. So just not to confuse you, let's just delete that. A class can be just one, Element doesn't have to be 3. Right? So one class with one shape give you 6. It's not the same shape, but yeah, sue me. All right. So they can give you multiple objects, and these objects, they are of different attributes. Still recording. All right. How about that? Simple. That's a class and that's object. So now let's go back to real programming life and do that, and we'll learn that, right? So in this example, we're gonna do something. We're gonna do a class, and then we're gonna create objects out of this class, and we're gonna show how that you cannot use a class without it being an object. Okay, so all these things we're gonna show it. And you're gonna say, aha, if you used already programming, you get these errors. So make sure, guys, you have this Visual Studio Express 2013 installed. It's free. You can just download it. You need just a Windows, and just get ready to go. If you guys are watching me from a Mac, just download this VirtualBox from Oracle, I think. Yeah, it's free. Download it. And if you have the ISO for the Windows, where you can get it, I think you can get it for free now from Microsoft. I'm not sure. All right. Once you get that, attach this to the VirtualBox, and you're gonna have yourself a Windows. There are a lot of tutorials that show you how to do that. All right. So once you get that, open Visual Studio Express. In the previous episode, we created like a sample project, right? I don't know what, I think we called it Hello World. Alright, so in this episode, we're going to create an actual project and just work with it, right? So we're gonna call it, I love this name, man. I love it. Love this name. Let's call it Pizza Bit. I'm gonna get rid of this ugly name. Is it Bit Pizza or Pizza Bit? What do you think, guys? Pizza Bit. Pizza Bit. I swear I just came up with this name. Guys, please believe me. I didn't plan this. Alright. So it's just Windows for applications, so we have our forms. We need forms here. Alright. So let's save. Remember, guys, let's just go quickly. This is a project. The project name. This is a solution where you can have multiple projects. We're not there yet. We're not there yet. Just stick with the project. Right? So this is the form. When you double click here, whenever you're lost, double click here, you go to this designer, you see the forms. We talk about controls, and these are nice things where you add text boxes and stuff. And the next episode today is just about classes. All right. So if you noticed, I'm not gonna talk about that. So when you double click here, one method is created here, right? And this method we talked about is that it's an event, right? We don't have much to do with it. It just the program executes it when the form loads. That's what happens, right? But in our case, and you remember, right? Let's declare a variable. A variable can be any name, really. Like, you can have it any name, just don't start with a number. I don't think they like it. Yeah, you can do that, right? So like you can make it X, then integer, and some sort. Let's declare a few new variables as we go, right? We talked about this, right? So message box X. So when you run, you get what? 1, right? Which is the value we set it to X, and we then message box, we show that message, right? All right. Now what we were gonna do is this. We're gonna create a new class. We're gonna call it Pizza. Pizza. Give me pizza. Pizza. So what you do is that you do this. Okay, sorry about I was so fast doing that. Right click, add. That's how you do add a new class, right? New item, or you just go class, wherever you want. Once you do that, make sure you select class, and then you just name it Pizza. Now, that's interesting. See, public class Pizza. You say end class. That's it. They don't say anything else, right? And your code goes into this class. All right. Sounds interesting. All right. Let's do that now. Okay. The first important thing about a class is called a class can have these things. Let's go there. We talked about comments. This is a comment when you added a single code. So a class have methods, properties, and multiple constructors. We're going to talk about constructors. All right. Okay. Public class. So methods, properties, and multiple constructors. So let's talk about properties first. Okay. So it has properties, methods, and multiple. So the first thing I'm going to do here, I will make a method here. Okay. A method always in VB.NET starts with a sub, right? So you say sub, which stands for subroutine, right? And you say get, for example, the method name. Let's call it get or let's get pizza crust type. All right. So the method name, the method identifier is a sub. All right. But that's what's wrong with this, you know. A sub does not return anything. That's the difference between a function and a method or a subroutine. So let's say just show pizza crust type, for example. Okay. Once you hit enter and you just do that, I don't think you have to add those. Just enter and just adds this in sub for you. That's one of these things that VB.NET automatically adds code for you, right? So when you do that, sub shows pizza crust type, and then end sub. Let's add our code. So I'm gonna add message box thick. So this will show a message that says thick, right? So how do I use this class? Now I have a class with a method with logic in it, all right? How do I do that? How do I call this method? It's really easy. We go back. We cannot call a class directly like we did with the form. You have to call it from an entry point, all right? And this entry point should be either an executable or a form load in this case, or an event. All right, so in this case, we go back, double click here, goes to this code, and now let's delete this code. Now to the moment of truth. That's how you declare. We need to declare an object of type pizza in order to use it. Remember we saw this, right? We cannot just use the class directly. It doesn't mean anything. We have to create an object and then use that object. How do we do that? Really simple. To create an object, I want to show that it's impossible to use a class without an object. So for example, if you say pizza dot, there's nothing there. So the class name is pizza dot, and the intuition would do this pizza dot, right? And that's what a lot of people mistaken, you know, when they say pizza dot and they don't see their method. But I wrote a method here. Why is it not showing up? Okay, so they go and say, okay, it's not public. Maybe I'll just add public, so I can see it. It doesn't matter. It will not show. You know, pizza dot. It doesn't matter. It will not show at all. Why? Because it's not an object. So people will start searching the net and then add weird shit here, so their method will show, and then they will say, hey, I just wrote some object-oriented code. No, you did not. You just used this class as a module to write your methods. You didn't do anything. That's not object-oriented, right? Real object-oriented, you have to declare an object of that class and set attributes to that object, and then use that object. So pizza, let's call it P. Oh, sorry. This is C sharp, right? So it's to declare an object like we have used with the variables. You'd have to say dimension variable name P, can be anything you want, and you say as. We learned integers, right? That's pretty much it, I think. Now we're gonna learn a class. You just put your class here, pizza. We just made an object out of this class. What's the problem now? When I say p dot, oh, I can show the crust type, right? People will do that, and that will give you an error. Why? You'll see why. Let's show. All right, so we declared a variable or an object p of type pizza, which is a class we just did, and then we said p dot, and obviously he's just giving us some errors here, right? But don't worry about it. dot show pizza crust type. So this, according to this method, double click here to show it. Message box sticks. We should see this message box, right? Go back, double click. So let's just run it and see what we get. We get a nasty error. That's the most, I think this is the most famous error in the world. Object reference not set to an instance of an object. That's very important. Right. So that's an object reference that we did. A variable is an object reference. So this is a reference. It's not an object. Doesn't have anything, doesn't contain anything. Okay, you just declared a reference as if you said, hey, I want an object of type this, but you didn't put any stuff in it. You didn't put anything in the cup. Come back to the cupcake example. You didn't put a blueberry syrup, or you didn't put a strawberry dough, whatever. You didn't put stuff in it. But obviously, I'm a bad cook here for pastries. I know how to cook savory stuff, all right? Don't judge me. All right, so you pour stuff and you get out stuff. So the problem with that, you declared, you just said, I want to make a pizza, but you declared that, but right, and then you didn't do anything about it, just like all the politicians basically. All right, so I'm sorry, let's not talk that. So you declared that you want to do that, and then you didn't do anything about it, right? So like, as a problem. So what you do is basically you set that reference to an object, and to do that you have to use this. It's a keyword called new. All right, and new makes you create objects. You need that. Without new you cannot create objects. And then you say the class name. Remember this? See this new? So this is a method in that class which is hidden from you. It's called a new actually, right? So that method is actually the constructor that we're going to talk about. So when you declare p as pizza equal new pizza, now you have yourself an object, guys. Yeah, you just said that, right? You can do it this way, you can do it this way, doesn't really matter, right? Whatever rocks your boat. All right, so run that and you have thick. All right, guys, so we know how to call a method. Now we know how to call a class. We know how to create a class. This is a class. That's an object, right? If you don't create an object, you cannot use this object to do stuff, right? Now that we learned how to create methods, let's do something more fun, right? Let's do properties. A property is, as you said, a property of an object. So for example, is this like this, for example, pizza crust is actually a property, you know. It's just, what is the pizza crust for this, you know? What is the spicy? Is it spicy or not, for example? Is this pizza spicy or not? It's a property. I would say it as a property, maybe, right? Or for example, does it have cheese? All these things. Property. What is the property of that? So to add a property, you just say property. Really forgot. You just say property and you say tab, 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 and you have this scary things, right? So let's break it down into manageable things, you know. You know what? I'm gonna talk about properties. I'll talk about methods first, right? And private variables. All right, so we talk about methods. Let's talk about functions, right? I'm gonna do the same thing here, public, but instead of sub, do function. Okay, function, the difference between function and sub is a function that returns stuff. After you do things, you return with an answer or a result, right? And this result get pizza crust type. So you say public, you say the method identifier, which is function, the method name get, so return this type of this, and then you say what's the type of what are you returning. So we're gonna return, we didn't explain that before, so that's a string. A string is actually this, basically. Instead of hard coding it, we say string. A string is a variable type, like integer, right? A string, you can put always any letter and characters in it, so this is a string, right? So in this case, I can say return thin, for example, thin crust, right? Return asks, this function says, after you do stuff, in this case we just return, right? But you can do more stuff, obviously, here, and we're gonna do that, right? Just because we just explain in this episode, we're gonna explain classes, getting comfortable with it, right? All right, so we're gonna return. So we learned about methods, we learned about functions. Function, you have to have a return, right? Without a return, you cannot, basically, you cannot use a function. You have to return something. So we're gonna return that, and then you use that. So that's the thing here. Now let's remove that line. Now when I say p dot get pizza crust type, this statement as it is weird. It will not do anything. Why? Because I am not receiving the value that this guy has returned, right? So how do I receive a value? You declare a variable. How about that? Simple. So let's declare a variable called s as a string. And you say s is equal space. What the fuck? S is equal to p dot get pizza crust type. So this returns a string and puts it here. Remember, if you forget to do that, it will return another type. So, and you'll start being confused. It will work without that, but we don't want that. We want to be clear that I'm returning a string, right? If you don't return anything, they will assume a type called variant. So it can be anything. Don't do that. That's bad, right? So you have to specify what are you returning if you're using functions. So, right, s is equal to s. Now I have the variable s. What will happen? Can you guess? 1, 2, 3, make a guess. What should I get as a message? The answer is nothing. Why? Because you didn't do anything, right? You're not calling this function anymore. This function returns you the thin string. It puts it here in the s. Now s here, exactly, s has the value of thin. But you didn't decide to do anything with it. You didn't decide to show us. Show us. That's how you show us. Message box S. How about that, guys? Nice, huh? All right. Now, this is kind of constant, right? So, what if I want to create another pizza? Can you do that? Oh, that's good. Nice, of course, you can create multiple pizzas. You can create multiple cupcakes out of the same class, right? It's this P2 as pizza. Pizza number 2, right? Now, go fancy. In the same line, shit, right? So then we say, now we get even fancier. Message box p dot get pizza crust type. Can you guess what will this do? It's very simple. You skipped the middleman. You cut the middleman. You don't have a string. You didn't put that value that this returns into a string. You just showed it to the user, right? That's really interesting. So what will the first message box be? So we're gonna have two messages pop up, right? So the first message, we click OK, and then there will be another message, and we click OK. What will be the first value? What will be the second value? Yes, thin, and the second one is also thin. Why? Because it's hard coded. It just sort of say return thin no matter what. Always return this. That's boring. We want to have some sort of control over our pizza, right, guys? So what do? We introduce variables, guys. We introduce variables right there. So now we introduce the variables. Now, that's a dilemma. Variables in class or modular variables in class cannot be accessed directly. It's a rule that someone made and we're following it. And there are good reasons for it. And I can tell you these reasons too, right? Always, these variables start with a private. Nobody should access them. Why? Because public, you can, let's say that. If I made this private, and then we say underscore crust type, and then we say as a string. Now you said, okay, what the hell, Hussein? What's that? Why do you are starting with underscore? It's just a standard code, that I learned. It's Microsoft, I think. So when you use a private variable, I always start with an underscore. So when I write down my variables, I know that if it starts with an underscore, it's a private. Nobody can access it. And the reason is that, let's do that. When I do here, go form, and I say, let's go my pizza, p2 dot, I don't see my crust type variable. I cannot access it. I cannot do anything with it. I cannot get it. I cannot set anything with it. It is hidden. But the moment I say it's public, p2 dot, you get crust type. You can set it. But that's the worst thing you want to do. Don't expose your naked variables to people outside your class. This is a very intimate room. Don't let anybody violate it. All right. I don't know why I'm speaking like this. This feels like an episode of Game of Thrones. All right. So yeah. So private, right? And if you want to set these variables, you have to have some sort of a controller that sets it for you. And I'll tell you why. All right. So now this returns a pizza crust type, right? So now instead of thin, we can just simply return crust type here. So this variable is not set to anything, right? If someone directly calls this, he will get nothing. He'll get an empty string. But how about we make another method, function? Okay, a method is good, actually, fine. All right, let's call it set pizza crust type. Now a method doesn't return anything, right? I want to set my crust type variable. How do I set it? Through a method or through a function. All right. But now now we'll learn new things. See, if we have a problem, like we're solving this pizza crisis, we'll learn stuff as we go. Say, I didn't plan, I didn't study this. It just goes with the flow. So I'm introducing a new thing now. It's called parameters. So we introduced the method, which takes nothing. We introduced a function which returns stuff now and returns a specific type. Now we're gonna introduce the parameters that takes stuff to this function and returns a value, right? So in this case, it's called crust type as string. That's what we do here, right? So we take this variable and then we expect the user to send us this variable, and we set this variable in this method. So we say crust type is equal to crust type. See the difference, that this doesn't have an underscore, this does, right? So this is a function that this is the variable that the user will send, and this is a method that the user will call. So let's go back here. A function that gets, a function that sets, right? We go here, we say pizza2 dot set pizza crust type. Now I can set this variable before I call it, right? So let's do that. So in the first pizza, I'm gonna set the pizza crust type. So when I do that, see, it is expecting me to send something here, a string. A string is this. I'm gonna set the first one as thick, and then I'm gonna get that pizza crust and display it. The second time, the second pizza, I'm gonna set it as thin and get displayed. How about that? So when I do a message now, first one is thick, second one is thick. Oh, that's bad. We just did a bad mistake. So what did we do wrong? So I just knew what did we do wrong here. The first one is thick, the second one is thick too. Why? Because the first one is p. Like this always happens when you have similar variable names. You know, the first one is thick, you set that, you get that p, then you declare a variable called p2, you set it to a new object, you call the set, and then you stupidly call the first one. For some reason, you have to call the second one, the one you just did. I always make this mistake, and everybody does. Like misspelled variable. That's the worst. Alright, so thick and thin. Right? How about me make another variable, guys? Huh? Another object. Then p3 as pizza equal new pizza p3 dot set pizza crust type. What kind of thick? Thick and thin and crusty. I don't know if this is a thing, but message box p3 dot get pizza crust type. Guys, remember, we're still learning. We didn't do anything to our program. We're just learning stuff here. Alright, so now we should thick, thin, and crusty. Interesting. How about that? So now we did use two functions or two methods to execute our our variable. So these three lines can be replaced by a property, right? So let's just delete all this. This is actually a property, what we just did, Let's just remove that too. So prop, tap, 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 and then you'll have these components. So what do you do to have a property? It's a very long, actually. I'd never write it. Just write prop and say tap and tap and tap. That's it, 2 taps, I think. So the first one is the new property value. That's always by default as string. So this is the private. The private always starts with underscore. Remember, guys, crust type. And then this is the public property. What do you want to see outside the word? You say just crust type, always caps, right? And so you just go here and hit enter. So how does that work? This is actually 2 parts. The first part we just explained, right? Here it's a public property crust type as a string. So it returns a string. This is a property that returns string. It has 2 parts, gets and sets, which is the functions we wrote. Previously, there wasn't something called a property, so .NET created this crust to simplify stuff, So a get always returns that. A set always sets the value to the crust type. Simple, right? You don't have to do anything with it, right? Now let's go use it. Now we get some errors here, of course, because now P, when you say P dot crust type, see, you get this, whatever they call it, I forgot how to call it in English. So you now set this to thick. Let's use set a variable now, right? And now the beauty of this is that you don't have to call a function get or call a function set. Just call the same thing, property, right? P dot crust type. Always like that, huh? P dot crust type equal thin, and P2 dot crust type. It's not a method anymore, so you don't have to add these. Actually, you get an error. I think you get these. No, you don't. So dot crust type equal crusty. All right. And what else? P3 dot crust type equal, no, I'm just displaying that. So run. We have that. Almost an hour now, guys. Let's wrap it up. All right. So what did we learn today? What did we learn today? Today we learned about classes. We learned about methods. We learned about functions and properties of a class. So in the second episode, the next one, I really was hoping we can actually do something with our pizza. We can actually populate stuff, but it was necessary to learn how to do that, and it took an hour. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. So in the next one, we're gonna complete. This is part 1. So we're gonna do a part 2 for this classes and objects, and we're gonna introduce constructor because we didn't introduce a constructor. Yeah, and then we're gonna start pouring stuff in here. All right, writing some logic finally, guys. So in the next one, actually, we're gonna write some real logic to complete our pizza class, to have a real pizza class. This is not a pizza, this is a crap, right? All right, guys, hope you enjoyed this episode, and sorry as my voice is a little low, just woke up. So yeah, you stay awesome and see you in the next one. Goodbye.